Okay, well, people will still keep trickling in. That's fine. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're so happy to have Megan and Olivia joining us this morning to talk about nutrition and SCI. Megan Morris is the clinical nutrition manager at Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital, and Olivia Morgan is, did I say Megan Morris? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Olivia Morgan is the clinical dietitian at Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital, and lots of you know them from the Megan and Olivia show that airs every Tuesday live from 11 to 12. Megan and Olivia also recently received the Larry Brennan Compassion and Commitment Award from SCI Boston. We're very lucky to have them. Just a couple of little housekeeping items. If there's anybody here, I'm assuming you're all here because you get our emails, but if there's anybody here that would like to get our emails or would like for either myself or Jessica or Obi or somebody from the chapter to reach out and contact you, please, you can drop it in a chat to us or whatever. Also, if everybody could stay muted during this portion, that would be really helpful. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. If you have a question, you can also put it in the chat to kind of save your place. If you're not able to do that, no problem. We'll be able to get to all the questions that everybody has. So I think that is all. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan and Olivia. And I'm going to put spotlight you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
lady.
Great. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to share our screen. Yeah, we're going to jump right into it. We have over 50 slides and we want to leave time for questions. But we had asked our group a few weeks ago what they wanted to talk about, and we tried to include everything. So it's an all-inclusive talk. So if you have any questions, certainly put them in the chat or save them for the end. So like Heidi mentioned, my name's Megan Morris. I'm now the clinical nutrition at Spaulding Rehab Hospital in Charlestown. I was the clinical dietitian for the spinal cord injury unit for the last 6 years. So that's what kind of started my passion. And now Olivia and I continue to do this group and every Tuesday, and we love it.
Yeah, I'm an outpatient dietitian and inpatient dietitian as well. Have really enjoyed working with the spinal cord injury population, just learning more about them over the past 4 years. And we love our Tuesday group. So if you feel like today, we'll put a plug at the end, but if you feel like today, you're like, wow, this is a great taste, feel free to pop in whenever. We have a lot of people who come all the time, some people who just pop in when they can, but you're always welcome at our Tuesday nutrition talk.
We have no disclosures. We have to say that. So a little bit of why this matters, but after a spinal cord injury or disorder, there is an increase in fat mass and a decrease in muscle mass just from what happens, just from your body adapting. This increases the risk for certain diseases like heart disease and diabetes, which is why there's a bigger emphasis on your overall nutrition.
Yeah, so nutrition just matters a little bit more. You just have to be more cautious, and that's why we think that this talk will be really helpful. So first, we're going to start by talking a little bit about some of the physical and metabolic changes.
We broke this down into chapters to make it a little bit easier to remember and to focus on. But in the acute phase after a spinal cord injury, which is usually about the first 7 weeks, you inevitably experience weight and muscle loss. It is impossible to prevent it entirely. Muscle loss mostly occurs below the level of injury because you're no longer using that part of your body as much as you were before. This is really related to some technical terms, gluconeogenesis, which is just the formation of glucose or energy, as we like to mention it as, from other substrates in the body. So basically how I describe this to patients is if you have more muscle mass, your body's going to use that muscle for energy. It's a quick way for your body to convert your muscle into the energy that it needs when it's healing. And that's why people will notice that they're losing muscle very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. That also contributes to a loss of nitrogen as your muscle continues to break down. Also, at the end of this, you will be required to say gluconeogenesis 5 times fast.
In the chronic phase, which is 7+ weeks after a spinal cord injury, is typically when people will actually start to notice weight gain. So the first part is a lot of weight loss, and then it eventually starts to, swing the other direction. And that's related to increased availability of food or preferred foods. If someone's in the hospital and they're not a huge fan of the hospital food, and that's also contributing to some weight loss, then they get home cooked meals, the foods that they love, they may start to gain some weight, continue decreased physical activity, as well as when your metabolism is starting to slow down. So typically, you can maintain your weight at a certain level after a spinal cord injury or disorder. Any type of hospitalization, your calorie and protein needs go up a little bit, but eventually with a spinal cord injury or disorder, they go down a bit.
So it's just about adapting to that shift. There's also an interesting concept that we've recently read about called neurogenic obesity. So obesity is an increased amount of adipose tissue, usually from an imbalance of energy, where calories in versus calories out. But after a spinal cord injury, there's a significant decrease in total energy expenditure, which contributes to an increase in fat tissue that's created. And it's really to nobody's fault. It's just kind of something that occurs. But I felt like this was an interesting term because we don't always, I'd never heard this before.
And neurogenic is more about saying that it's related to the injury itself. It's less related to, you. I like to kind of take some of that blame away. I don't even like the term blame. So when thinking about weight and BMI, we use BMI as a society as a measure for people's health. A lot of doctors will use that as a measure for people's weight versus their height. And it's not really an accurate measure for most people. It's a way to measure, through society, but it's especially not an accurate measure for people with spinal cord injuries or disorders.
Sometimes people will also use a waist circumference, where they basically just take a tape measure and they'll measure how far around your waist. Sometimes also we'll use skin fold measurements, but for waist circumference, really not accurate after spinal cord injury. Skin fold measurements, unless you're doing an area above the area of injury, they're not super accurate. The most accurate way to assess for fat mass, muscle mass is going to be a bioelectrical impedance study or a dual X-ray absorptiometry or DEXA scan.
just remember
DEXA scan, which some people may have experienced before to evaluate their bone mass, but it does also assess kind of that fat to muscle mass ratio as well.
Olivia's actually had it done before.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty easy.
So in thinking about how would you look at BMI, because people are still going to use it, as much as we hate BMI as dietitians, it's still something that is used as a clinical indicator for weight. A normal BMI for, anybody is 18.5 to 24.9, where obese is over 30. However, new research from actually the American Society for Parental and Enteral Nutrition is saying that a normal BMI for people living with spinal cord injury is actually 18 to 22, with obesity being greater than 25. And that, I believe, is more related to the term neurogenic obesity, like we talked about. Inevitably, you're going to have decreased muscle mass and increased fat mass, which is why these numbers are a little bit lower.
Also, just a side plug about BMI in general. It was something that was created back in the 1800s, and they had established these cutoffs for normal and obese. And actually the normal range went up to 27 for a BMI. And then in 1997, based on almost nothing, they changed the category to 18.5 to 24.9. So they just randomly kind of made this decision, not really based off of a lot of data. So that's even more why these cutoffs don't matter.
People became obese overnight.
Yeah, amazing.
Wild. So then we also have to think about, BMI comes from your weight versus your height. How are you getting weighed? That's the big question. That's the question that honestly Olivia struggles with the most in outpatient. A lot of PCP offices do not have an accurate way to weigh people with a spinal cord injury. So oftentimes you have to either wait until you're at physical therapy or your PM&R physiatrist to get an accurate weight.
Yeah, our preferred methods are if they're able to do like a sling scale or like a Hoyer scale weight, or a wheelchair scale where you can roll on and you know the weight of your wheelchair, where they can weigh you guys separately. But there's also other measures that we can use as well. And I feel like these sometimes can be more helpful and they're more available to us on a daily basis, because sometimes weight is not really an accurate measure of our health. Like we were saying before, sometimes there are a lot of things that are out of our control. So the things that we can notice: change in function. Are you able to do the things that you're normally able to do? Are you noticing that they're a little bit harder? Do you notice that whenever you are putting on your clothes, they're fitting you a little bit differently? You're just having a little bit tougher of a time. Fit of your equipment, if you're able to fit comfortably in your wheelchair, you're noticing that you're hitting the sides a little bit more or less. And then how much energy you have, because food is ultimately fuel, energy. If you're feeling like, I have no energy throughout the day, turning back to your nutrition, and hopefully some of the things we're getting to next can help.
We've had a lot of questions about how to estimate energy needs for weight maintenance. So we have to start with thinking about weight maintenance, and then you can kind of go from there to think about, okay, what are my energy needs for either gaining weight or losing weight? To keep it as simple as possible, even when we're at work, we use 25 to 30 calories per kilogram of weight to estimate somebody's nutrition needs for weight maintenance. With paraplegia and tetraplegia, your calories per kilogram are decreased, again, because of the decrease in energy that's being expended throughout the day, as well as decreased muscle mass. So you'll notice that it goes down to 22 to 24 calories per kilogram for somebody with paraplegia and 20 to 22 calories per kilogram for somebody with tetraplegia. But again, these are just estimates.
Yeah, it's all just an estimate. And also, if you want to do it for yourself right now, while you're watching this talk, you take your weight in pounds and divide it by 2.2.
That's your kilograms.
And that's your weight in kilograms. So if you want to do it quickly, you can see what your numbers are.
We do always like to estimate in a range because it's easier to kind of think, okay, there's a low end and a high end. You're never going to be perfect. So yeah, we always give a range. Similarly, we have a range with fluid needs and protein needs. Your fluid needs typically are 25 to 35 milliliters per kilogram. Again, so you can see knowing your weight in kilograms can be very helpful. Or, typically we'll say do half your weight in ounces.
I like this is straight talk, half your weight in ounces.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. So in that case, if you're 150 pounds, that's about 50 to 80 ounces of that 25 to 25 milliliters per kilogram, 75 ounces ish. I think that the half your weight in ounces does kind of overestimate your fluid needs because it doesn't kind of fully calculate to the kilograms. And then switching to our protein needs for a standard person, just again, like everyday living, we're going to do 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of your body weight. So take your weight in kilograms, that's basically how much protein you need. That can range anywhere from 1.0 to 2.0. So in the hospital, if somebody is, on an outpatient setting, if somebody has a wound that they're trying to heal, then we'll shoot more towards the upper end. Somebody's trying to work on increasing their muscle mass, doing some activity, participating in exercise at Spaulding, maybe at XVD. Then we'll maybe shoot on the higher end. But a lot of times, most people are floating around the range of 1.2 to 1.5. But again, going down to that 0.8 grams per kilogram isn't a bad thing. So it's a pretty big range if you see for a 150-pound person getting around 82 to 102 grams protein per day.
It tends to be pretty easy to hit your protein needs for the most part, unless you have a wound. That's one we'll get into later on. So in summary, for chapter 1, if you remember, physiological changes, your nutrition needs change, but the quality of your nutrition still counts. Chapter 2, nutrition 101.
Our favorite part.
Okay, so we're going to go into the macronutrients. We started off with carbohydrates because this is your body's main source of energy. So you need about 45 to 65% of your calories each day to be from carbohydrates in order to fuel your body appropriately. In case you're wondering, 4 calories per 1 gram of carbohydrates. So they're not super nutrient dense, but it still gives you what your body needs. So carbs are the brain's preferred source of energy, and they provide a lot of fiber for you. So this is where our favorite food, oatmeal, comes in. As well as, if you may have noticed on the first slide, I enjoy baking sourdough bread, also a carbohydrate. But a lot of foods are carbohydrates because your body needs carbohydrates. So carbs are found in your fruits and vegetables, your dairy products, beans, bread, pasta, all the good stuff like that too. This is Olivia's fun fact, so I'm going to let you say it.
Yeah, so when you, so my fun fact, because carbs are your brain's preferred source of energy, when you get very hungry, you're always going to want to reach for the carbohydrates. That's because your brain is smart and knows that carbs will give it the energy the fastest. Unfortunately, the quickest carb that we have around is not usually a fruit or a vegetable. It's usually the Trader Joe's white cheddar cheese puffs.
Well, those are her favorite.
And those are always at an easy grasp. So if you feel like, oh, I'm always craving carbs, it's really just your brain being smart. And maybe it's about kind of timing and hunger, which we're going to get to next, or in a bit. Next, we're going to get to protein. So protein is the same calorie density as carbohydrates. So they're both 4 calories per gram. And the role that protein plays in your body is muscle maintenance and muscle growth. So we were saying before that 0.8 grams per kilogram, that's, for that muscle maintenance, that's the lowest that you need to keep the muscles that you have. Muscle growth, and you might need a little bit more. Comes from meats, fish, eggs, dairy, nuts, legumes. So animal products, but then a decent amount of vegetarian protein sources as well. Our favorite fun fact, well, I don't know, I think it's my favorite, but I did like the carb one.
Olivia has a lot of favorite fun facts.
I really like this one. Your body can only absorb a certain amount of protein at once. So it kind of has like a set point. It can only absorb about 20 to 30 grams of protein at one single time. So if you ever look at the back of like a protein powder, protein drink, it's almost always going to be around that 20 to 30 grams.
And a serving of chicken or fish or meat is about 20 to 30 grams.
Yeah, same size as the palm of your hand. Getting a little protein at every meal and snack can help to keep you full because it takes longer to digest. Then it also helps you reach that total protein goal for the day.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to fat. So fat is the most calorie dense macronutrient. So you may have noticed at the top, we're mentioning macronutrients. There are the 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Fat is 9 calories per gram. So when we say a little bit goes a long way, we mean it. It's needed for the creation of hormones and the absorption of your fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K. It's found in butter, oils, nuts, fatty fish. It's also found in a lot of just standard foods. A lot of foods are combinations of the different macronutrients. There are a few different types of fat that we like to highlight. So trans fat should not be found in any food. It is banned. However, if a food has less than 1 gram?
0.5 grams or less.
0.5 grams or less. It can be labeled as having 0 grams of trans fat. They round down.
Shout out to rounding.
I know, unfortunately. So instead of looking for trans fats on the label because it's not going to be there, we tell people to look for hydrogenated oils in the ingredients, or partially hydrogenated. That is a sign that it is a trans fat and that you should avoid it. Oftentimes it's found in processed foods. Saturated fat is fat that is solid at room temperature. So for people that like alliteration, like myself, saturated solid, like butter, or the fat that's on like a marbled meat. Try to cut that off, or try to skip the butter unless it's something that you really enjoy. I'm a big fan of butter on toast. Keep the butter on toast, but cook with olive oil. So olive oil is an unsaturated fat. It's a fat that's a liquid at room temperature and considered heart healthy. To be really morbid in giving you a visual, saturated fat, if it's solid at room temperature, it's solid in your arteries, right? It's horrible to think about, but it gets the point across. So trying to choose more of those unsaturated liquid fats. So that's also the fat that's found on nuts and seeds because you can kind of like feel it on the outside, which kind of harder to picture, but it's still heart healthy. So trans fats and saturated fats are what contribute more to like coronary artery disease. So when in doubt, choose a liquid unsaturated fat. Do you have anything to add? Oh, coconut oil.
Oh yeah.
Coconut oil is considered a saturated fat. Even though it is liquid at room temperature when it's warm out, it is solid at room temperature when it's cold out.
Yeah.
So
it's actually the highest like single source of saturated fat. It is plant-based, so I think that people think that it's like a little bit of a healthier option. I would still put it in the same category as the butter. Use it where it counts and skip it where you don't need it. Oh, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Megan recreated this graph because we had one, it was a little bit blurry.
And we couldn't find out where it came from.
Yeah, but we do have sources from the Jocelyn Diabetes Center that provided the information about how foods affect your blood sugar. So basically, and shout out to Chris, this is his favorite graph. So it shows kind of how quickly foods are digested and how they're going to affect your blood sugar level. So if you see our yellow friends, the carbohydrates, they're going to cause your blood sugar level to go up pretty quick and then drop down pretty quick. And it's not going to last very long after you've eaten until you're hungry again. So a meal that just contains carbohydrates, even a carb that's like a healthier option, like a whole grain or a fruit that has some fiber in there as well, still going to have that peak in that valley.
My favorite example is pancakes with maple syrup. You're hungry 2 hours later.
Always hungry 2 hours later. But then we have our protein options. So they are going to still raise your blood sugar. All foods will, but they are going to have a slower rise and a slower fall. So it's a little bit more like a kiddie roller coaster versus like a big kid roller coaster. So there's gonna have a little bit higher rise than the fats. The fats are going to have the lowest rise. They're going to take the longest to digest. Again, they're super dense. That 9 calories per gram takes a lot for our body to kind of unwind that and get into that and use it for energy. So really our magic key is where we're incorporating all of those foods together, because then you get the best of both worlds, because you want that quick energy and you want that extended energy as well.
That's very well explained. Thank you. We also had to bring up the food pyramid because people still remember the food pyramid, even though it's like impossible to find images of the food pyramid anymore because they're really trying to get away from it. So the food pyramid was replaced with the plate method, or what's called My Plate. So rather than looking at this pyramid and not really knowing what to do with it, you can look at a plate and think about how to divide your plate in a way that will give your body everything that it needs. So you'll notice that half your plate is fruits and vegetables, a quarter of your plate is grains, a quarter of your plate is protein, and dairy is kind of hanging out on the side.
Then we also have another option that I really like from Harvard. Their kind of version of the healthy eating plate, because they do incorporate the healthy oils as well. You know, we don't necessarily think of them within the plate method because they're usually used to prepare vegetables or the protein or the grains, but just giving them like a shout out because they definitely do contribute to overall health. And I also I'm not against dairy in any way whatsoever, but I think the dairy can also be incorporated as your healthy protein option. And it's good to be thinking of your hydration, your water. So pretty similar, but slight variation that I like.
So how do we put it all together? I'm laughing in my head because Joe was talking about our slides and we were like, we have some animations. So I hope you enjoy this, Joe. But so thinking about breakfast, you know, we often talk about how you're supposed to make half your plate fruits and vegetables. Well, it's kind of difficult to do that at breakfast if you're not a fan of eating vegetables at breakfast.
That's a lot of vegetables in the mornings. That's too much.
Yeah, unless you're eating like an omelet or drinking a smoothie every morning, it's a challenge. So we like to emphasize making sure that you're getting a protein source because that's what's going to help keep you full longer, and then getting something with fiber. whether that be, a whole grain carbohydrate or a fruit. I think it's a lot easier to incorporate a fruit at breakfast than it is multiple vegetables.
But then when we switch over to our lunch and dinner, we're really focusing back on that plate method. And we've really simplified it down here. It's half veg, quarter carb, quarter protein. This is the balance because you get that fullness from your vegetables, you get that satisfaction from your carbohydrate option, and then you get your protein that's going to help your energy level last longer. So this is how we take all of those nutrients and then we incorporate it into a day.
And you may notice if you don't hit all the macronutrients, you're going to feel unsatisfied.
Yeah.
So trying to think about it every time you're eating. That's why the plate method can be helpful. So what about snacks? How do we think about snacks? A lot of times people will just kind of reach for whatever is around. I like to think of snacks as an opportunity. It is an opportunity to make up for areas in your diet that you are lacking. Usually that is a fruit or a vegetable. So how do you have a fruit or a vegetable and make it a well-rounded snack?
We need to make sure that we are always having a carbohydrate option at our snack because that's giving you the quick energy. You're having a snack because you're hungry or you feel like your energy level is lagging. It's been a while since your last meal. You need that quick energy. Then you want to pair it with that protein option as well. We have a lot of different things listed on this list. My favorite is an apple and peanut butter. I do also love some popcorn.
We put oatmeal on here. You can have oatmeal as a snack.
Yeah, oatmeal is a great snack. Those little like individual packets, they're pretty small. They're really a better snack. I would say 2 for breakfast at minimum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But a lot of different options here. There are some foods that may contain both a carb and a protein at once, so it's not like 1 + 1. I do like having 2 things together. I think it feels like more like thoughtful,
especially if you're a quantity person where you're like, I need to have a little bit of density.
Yeah, I want a good portion. I want to see that there's a good amount of food on my plate. But things like a granola bar may have some carbohydrates and some protein together,
or a small smoothie or something like that. So then you have your meals. You have your breakfast, you have your lunch, your dinner, your snacks. Now, what about timing? So timing really plays an important role. Olivia will often say when she's talking to patients on an outpatient basis, if people are getting super, super hungry at certain times of the day, we have to kind of go backwards and think, are you waiting too long to eat a meal? So you should start your day with a balanced breakfast. I know some people are not breakfast fans, that's okay, but really trying to get your metabolism going as early in the day as you can. And then trying to check in with your hunger throughout the day and schedule your meals and your snacks. Ultimately, we're really just trying to avoid getting to that ravenous hunger stage because like Olivia mentioned with the carbohydrates, that's when you're going to reach for the quick energy, which is not usually the healthier option.
So also thinking about this, if you're someone who with your injury, with your spinal cord injury, you don't really have as much of that hunger sensation, thinking about your energy level, because that's also reflective of your nutrition status. Starting your day with the balanced breakfast gives you that kickstart of energy, and then keeping up with that throughout the day. Sometimes you're not able to rely on your hunger cues and you need to set some check-ins for yourself. I have patients where I need to say, you need to set reminders on your phone to check in with how hungry you are. And also I really like to think about the schedule. Like if you know that, you're going to have an appointment later on in the day, it's kind of like around lunchtime. Maybe you want to make sure that you have a good breakfast before you leave and you bring a snack with you to have, while you're waiting for your ride.
It does take the stomach about 2 to 6 hours to digest a meal. So we usually recommend not going longer than 4 to 5 hours without eating. Obviously, when you're sleeping, that is a longer time, which is why we do like to emphasize having something in the morning, just to break the fast, essentially. If you're drinking something that's liquid versus having a solid meal, it will empty through your stomach faster than a solid meal because by blending something together into a liquid form, you've already started the digestion process. So just keeping that in mind.
And some people find that can be helpful. Like they need those additional calories to help meet their needs, and they're not able to consume a big enough volume. So that can be helpful for some people. For other people, it may be like, I'm hungry 2 hours later.
Like me, I like to chew my food.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you take over this. This is Olivia's slide.
So thinking about, we were just saying like that ravenous hunger. What even is ravenous hunger? So this is a hunger scale that I like to use. So checking in with yourself throughout the day. Even right now, we can all check in and say, okay, on a scale of 1 being dizzy, nauseous, shaky, to 10 being so Thanksgiving stuffed and sick and full, like we took that extra bite and we didn't actually want it. Where are we at right now? I feel like at the beginning of this talk, I was at a 4. I'm maybe at a 3 right now on accident.
I'm at a 5.
You're at a 5?
I'm at a 5. I'm neutral.
She's neutral. But checking in with yourself throughout the day, like I was saying, when you're setting those reminders, checking in with your hunger, and then even checking in before, during, and after a meal. So before a meal, okay, maybe I am at that like irritable headache point. How did I get here? What happened before, and why did I get this? I had a crazy day. I just didn't have time. Okay, that's fine. We learned something, we move on. And then after a meal as well, you may feel like, okay, I'm physically full, but I haven't hit that satisfied level. That satisfied level is the key because it's looking for something. If you leave a meal feeling physically full but not satisfied, I always find that you're likely to be futzing around a little bit later, trying to find something to fill that satisfaction, maybe taking one bite of one thing, one bite of another. Sometimes it's just easier to hit that satisfaction point at a meal and then call it a day.
This is why sometimes it's helpful to, if you're really craving something, have it. If you don't have it, you're not going to be satisfied until you have it.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to keep eating.
Yeah. Oh, this is also my favorite. Okay.
Keep going.
So this is from a study that was published in 2014, I believe. But it's basically about why healthy habits matter. In the first section, we did talk about weight a lot. As dietitians, it comes up. But a lot of times for us, the end game isn't necessarily weight. For our patients, it is. But the end game for me is often healthy habits. And it's because of this. So this study looked at 4 healthy habits across a really big group of subjects. So it was like almost 12,000 people that they were looking at. And their healthy habits that they were looking at were pretty simple. Eating 5+ servings of fruits and vegetables today. So that's 5 combined of both of them. Exercising regularly for at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise 5 days per week. So like very chill, rolling yourself down the street type of thing. Consuming alcohol in moderation and not smoking. So those are the 4 big habits. So then if you look at the graph over on the right-hand side, you'll see that there is a couple different bars. So each bar represents a BMI range. Like I said, they're all kind of arbitrary, but just go with me here. So when people were following 0 of those healthy habits, they're smoking, they're drinking, they're not eating fruits and vegetables, they're sitting around. Then we have individuals with a lower body weight have a lower hazard ratio, which kind of is more about like mortality risk. And individuals at a higher body weight, they have a higher mortality rate. So, and it's pretty high, it's pretty significant. That's 0 healthy habits, doing all the bad things. Then we get to 1. It gets a little bit more even. All of those different groups of people gets a little bit closer, but it's still not significant. You get to 2, closer still. 3, 4, it's totally even. Statistically, each group of body weight individuals had the exact same risk of mortality when they were adhering to those 4 healthy habits. You can also see that it's really low. Mm-hmm. 4 really simple healthy habits can have a really great impact on health. And it's even more important than your body weight.
Snaps.
Shout out.
In summary, for chapter 2, eat food consistently. Carbs, protein, and fat all play a role in your diet. Balance your meals and your snacks. Avoid ravenous hunger, and healthy choices are more important than body weight. Chapter 3, barriers, strategies, and common pitfalls. So there was another study that we read that looked at individuals who had a spinal cord injury and had a few focus groups to kind of figure out, what are the barriers to making healthy choices. These are some of the barriers that came up in the focus groups. Appetite changes after your injury, already having some unhealthy lifestyle behaviors, self-control, lack of motivation, boredom, lack of knowledge, fatigue. We could go on. These are also barriers that anybody can experience. General barriers that we see to healthy eating across the spectrum are knowledge, not really knowing where to start or what to do, the cost of healthy food, time that it takes to prepare healthy food as opposed to just kind of purchasing things that are ready to eat or ordering out, and social norms. There was a picture of people gathering here. We gather around food. I always say, one of my favorite sayings is, food is so much more than just what you eat. It is cultural, it is social, it is comfort. So taking all those things into consideration.
And then for individuals with spinal cord injury, some of the things that often come up is that, relying on convenience foods. It's hard to prepare a lot of the foods that, you may be used to prepare. And those convenience foods aren't always the healthiest for us, especially some of those takeout items. And then challenges with getting to the grocery store, getting the foods you like. Even whenever you're doing grocery ordering, sometimes you do your Amazon Fresh order and they pick all of the avocados that are rock hard and they'll be good in probably next month.
We had a hot topic about avocados this past weekend. They are not right.
We're having troubles. But it is a challenge preparing that food, getting access to the healthy options. So just being aware of those.
So thinking about, okay, we have these barriers, how can we start talking more about, debunking some of the fad diets that are out there and kind of encouraging you all to making some healthier choices? So we have done actually, what did we call it when we did the fad diets in class? Was it just, I don't know.
Yeah, it was
we
like
covered all the fad
diets.
diets. Yeah. So these are some that come up, and one that we're seeing more and more recently is the keto diet, which is a focus on high fat, low carbohydrate eating. Typically, it's used in children who are struggling with seizures and have not seen any benefit with medications. It does eliminate an entire food group, and it's high in calories and saturated fat. So it is something that I advise caution with.
Mm-hmm. Then we have our paleo diet, which I feel like can have like some different names. I feel like Whole30 kind of can fall under this category as well. The idea that you're going back to our roots of being cavemen, not eating any processed foods. I know all of you guys were cavemen as well. So the thing that it does eliminate is grains, legumes, and dairy. So again, we're eliminating really big categories of food and foods that can be really nutritionally dense as well. So you can miss out on some nutrients, and again, hard to maintain, especially in like a social setting.
Then there's intermittent fasting, which again comes up quite often. The focus is going a long period without eating, whether that's 16 hours overnight or skipping a whole day. People will just fast intermittently. It is not suitable for everybody. We definitely encourage people who like breakfast to eat breakfast. We also err on the side of caution with people who have diabetes, because you don't want to go too long without eating, because that can cause fluctuations in your blood sugar. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
The only fast that has ever been statistically proven to have any benefit,
that's what I was thinking of,
is an overnight fast. So going to bed at night, having, had a period of time after your last meal before you go to sleep, all night, not getting up to eat, having a midnight snack, waking up in the morning, breaking that fast. So that is a fast that's been proven to be helpful. I think that we can all get behind, trying to move up our late meal in the day, trying to, have our dinner, have a couple hours before we go right to bed, not getting up in the night for a snack, unless it's absolutely necessary, unless you're like, oh my gosh, I woke up and I was absolutely starving, I need something to eat.
That's the worst feeling ever. Then there's vegan, which is a focus on no animal products. Vegan is also no animal products, no dairy, no nothing. The challenge with this type of diet is that there can be nutrient deficiencies because you're avoiding animal products, which tend to give your body more iron, B12, etc. It also can be challenging to maintain and can be expensive. But of course, I'm not going to shame anybody who's following the vegan diet for ethical consider. Obviously, we don't shame people for following any type of diet at all. We're just saying that some of these are not necessarily a diet that you should follow just willy-nilly because you're thinking that it would help your overall health.
Yeah.
If you have strong feelings about it, we're never going to say, no, don't do that. We're really just here to provide the education and the knowledge behind them.
Yeah. Then you guys can make an educated choice.
Some tools that are at our disposal are certain apps. You've heard of MyFitnessPal. I use Nutritionix. It is a newer app out there with USDA-based information, and it was created with some dietitians who work for the USDA, I think. I'm pretty sure. And
No,
we
you're
use it. I've used all of these just kind of to figure out what's out there. It can be helpful to track your calories for a few days and just kind of see where you're having certain pitfalls. It can become obsessive, time consuming,
cumbersome.
Yes, it's not something that I recommend long term. We obviously put ourselves on here as meeting with dietitians. Doesn't have to be us, but
we are out there.
We are out there. And then looking for social support, talking to your family and friends and saying, this is my goal. We said how social norms can be a barrier. So really trying to encourage other people to join you or to support you.
Yeah, I do just want to say, I like using the apps, the calorie counting apps as a tool, but they're not necessarily the end all be all. There's still going to be inaccuracies. And then also for our, dietitians, a lot of insurance does have some nutrition coverage. So it's something that, is a resource out there. And if it doesn't cover it, call your friend.
Phone a friend or come to our class.
Yeah, come to Tuesday.
A big thing that we focus on with individuals who are trying to make healthy choices is to make SMART goals, small, sustainable goals. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. My favorite one of these is realistic. You want to think about what works for you, your lifestyle, your needs. So some examples of what we often hear are, I will drink more water. What does that mean? What is your water? So the example of how to make this a bit more of a SMART goal is I will drink 12 ounces of water with my morning medications. Wow, that is so specific.
Thank you. I actually really like this one because it kind of, you have to take I like kind of habit grouping. You have to take your meds. You all do that every day. Why not just incorporate a little extra hydration there, especially in the morning, get it out of the way so you're not get to the end of the day and are like, oh my gosh, I drank 3 sips of water. I'm terribly dehydrated. Now I have to make up for it. And now I'm going to be peeing all night. Then another one that we hear sometimes is, I will eat better. But what is better? I have no idea. If you know, give us a call. So going back to one of the things that we just talked about, I'll make half my plate vegetables for dinner 3 nights per week. So you may think to yourself, wow, that plate method, that seems like a lot. That's a lot of vegetables. Maybe we can try to incorporate it just a couple of days per week and maybe just 1 meal a day. So really making that, again, taking that realistic. Or, what, I have somebody who's able to help me prepare meals on, a couple of days per week. Those are the days that I'm really going to prioritize, having them prepare a large amount of vegetables so I can eat them throughout the week.
I like a goal that is not every day.
Yeah.
I do not do everything every day.
Yeah, you have to know yourself. All or nothing can be challenging. That balance is key. Oh, we're going to get to balance soon.
I know.
These are a couple other ones that we really like. Cook 1 vegetarian dinner each week. That helps to incorporate some more of those legumes, some different types of protein. Do 15 minutes of stretching 5 days per week. I definitely don't.
I don't either.
Wear sunscreen daily. I definitely do. Add 1 serving of fruit or breakfast every day.
That's good.
Yeah, I feel like that's...
I didn't eat fruit this morning. I didn't have any. I ate a peanut butter sandwich. Classic. Okay. So we didn't talk about calorie counting. This is one of my favorite slides just because of the jumping numbers. So when thinking about calorie counting, it can be a positive because it can help you identify trends in how you are eating. It can be a tool to learn about calorie density of certain foods. It's also very measurable. You know, when we're talking about a SMART goal, one of the parts of the SMART goal is measurable. Cons, it's super time consuming. Can take up your entire day, and it can also become very obsessive very quickly. It's not entirely accurate. Olivia was counting her calories the other day for something that we'll show you later on. She's like, this is not
There's
right.
no way this is right.
I took it personally because she was using the app that I like, and then we figured out what went wrong.
Yeah.
But we also want you to focus on it focuses on the quantity of the food, not the quality. So you may be eating like those 100 calorie packs that are super processed and not good for you, which I definitely ate in the 90s, and not focusing on actually eating like a fruit or a vegetable.
Yeah, focusing more on the nutrient density of food, it is, we think it's efficient. It can also be individualized to your goals. I'm really focusing on fiber right now. I really want to focus on getting more fruits and vegetables. And it's focusing on the quality of the food, what you're putting in your body to make you feel good. People may be saying, I'm following, I'm calorie counting, I'm eating 1,200 calories per day. But I feel like crap. I feel like absolute garbage. And that could be because, you're getting to that 1,200 calories without really getting that nutrition that you need. Nutrient density may be a little bit higher in calories, may not be, just depends on the day. And it isn't quite as quantifiable. I think it's more in terms of like how you feel and your energy level that really is most affected with the nutrient density.
So getting into, our favorite ways of eating. We don't even like to use the term diet, even though the definition of diet is literally our way of eating. Well, it's also a job. So first and foremost, we want you to enjoy your food. We want you to choose foods that fit your lifestyle and your culture. And we want you to make small, sustainable changes that support overall health. So what does that look like? Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. I like the heart health. Okay. So we were talking at the beginning, it's just a fact of the situation. There is an increased risk of concerns with heart health with individuals with an STI. So we focus on this a lot. When we're thinking about heart health, what are the things we want to think about? We want to have more fiber, more of that roughage, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and legumes. Those are our fibrous foods. We want to have more healthy fats. So those unsaturated fats, the olive oil, the liquids, seeds, nuts, fatty fish like tuna and salmon. So focusing on, I like to really think more about what you can do more of because it feels really positive. But we do have to mention what you have to do less of at the same time. And that's decreasing how much salt you're having, that sodium. Most of the time it's coming from processed foods, takeout foods, the foods that you're preparing at home where you're adding salt as you're cooking, that contributes, a very minute percentage.
I think the percent was like 10%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 10. So that's really less of a concern for us. It's more about those other processed foods, takeout foods. And then saturated fat, like we talked about before, it's that solid at room temperature, solid on the outside, solid on the inside, icky, but just being cautious about it and knowing what role it plays in your health.
We did put coconut oil there.
Yeah, we did.
Good job.
Thank you. This is my favorite because of the salt shakers. Okay.
She tried imitating this week and it looked like she was milking a cow.
So salt holds onto water in your body like a sponge. So, for some people, this may be a positive thing because they're having issues with low blood pressure throughout the day. For individuals that are really concerned about their heart health going forward, we're concerned about high blood pressure. So when you eat salt, holds on to water in your body, and that adds excess fluid that has to pump through your body, which can increase your blood pressure and also lead to edema, which is like the puffiness. If you ever at the end of the day are like, oh my gosh, I take off my socks and there's like huge indents on my legs. It makes your heart work harder, and it can increase your blood pressure. The goal for the day for a heart healthy diet is going to be around 2,000 milligrams of salt per day, about 2 grams. We're also using salt and sodium interchangeably, just in case. I feel like that should be mentioned.
We like to also think of salt as a budget. You have a budget of 2,000 milligrams per day. How many meals a day do you eat? How many snacks a day do you eat? So if you're looking at that nutrition facts label, you can kind of understand, okay, I need to hit below this number. So typically we'll say for meals, try to be below 500 to 600 milligrams of salt. And then snacks less than 200?
200, 300, yeah. But we do still need salt in our diets. I have some people who are like, I need to be on a low salt diet. They go so low salt that they start to get dizzy because again, salt holds onto water. It can change your blood pressure. So definitely something that we still need, just something that we need to be cautious about.
We need less of.
Yeah.
We also, in our class, we talk a lot about fiber. Fiber is so important for any individual because it helps with bowel regularity, especially for individuals after a spinal cord injury, but it's also a huge component of heart health. So there are 2 different types of fiber. We talk about soluble fiber, which acts similarly to salt, where it's a sponge. It holds on to water. It slows down your digestion and it increases absorption and helps to control hunger levels and blood sugar levels. It also removes the bad cholesterol from the blood. So like scrubs out all the bad stuff. This is why we love oatmeal and why oatmeal has that little heart on the package, because it's a huge source of soluble fiber. You should note that if you are experiencing constipation, you should be avoiding some soluble fiber foods, especially bananas and oatmeal. Those are huge in soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is the roughage. It's going to add more bulk to your stools, help to kind of push things through your digestive system. So this is what helps if you are experiencing constipation. It's more of the push. You know, we got the mush and the push. Insoluble fiber foods, when I think of roughage, I think of like any raw fruits or vegetables, fruits with skins, whole grain products. We should note that your recommended intake of fiber per day for men is 30 grams per day, for women is 25 grams per day. Most people do not hit this recommended amount. So it is something that if you're focusing on getting more of fiber, you're automatically going to be eating less of some of the less healthy foods, which is why another reason why we like to focus on what you can do more of.
A lot of foods are going to be a mix of the soluble and insoluble. We'll say that. The soluble fiber foods, cannot emphasize enough the bananas and the oats.
We are superfood, you know, the big term superfoods out there. We don't agree with like any of the ones that anybody else talks about. We think prunes are a superfood because they are a perfect mix of soluble and insoluble fiber, and they do have a natural like laxative type effect. So if you are experiencing some pretty severe constipation or you just want some more regularity without taking another medication, prunes, man.
Magic fruit. The Mediterranean diet also comes up quite a bit. So this really focuses on eating more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, heart healthy fats like those oils, and then fish. So that's like the biggest category. Then in our like kind of middle category where we can include some, we have poultry or chicken, turkey, eggs, cheese, and yogurt. So those are a little bit more moderated. And then eating less red meat, added sugar, refined grains, highly processed foods. This is not crazy information. This is very like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
We didn't include the wine.
They do emphasize the wine in the Mediterranean diet. I mean, they're living longer, so you got to look at something. But you know, this doesn't really, you know, say we need to cut out huge categories of food. And when we're looking at a way of eating something that is a little bit more balanced like that, we tend to have more of an affinity for it, and it also tends to have more research behind it.
I love the focus on eating more, eating some, eating less. Like nowhere does it say avoid.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the diets or diets that are out there are so black and white that it causes a lot of stress, which automatically is not good for our bodies. Oh, this is one of our favorites. So we talk about the 80-20 rule. You may have heard of it. It's really just talking about balance. Nobody's perfect all the time, ourselves included. You'll see that soon. 80% of the time, you should be making the healthy choice. Think about the week as a whole. Think about the day as a whole. You know, try to just look at it as a way that you can say, okay, you know, one bad decision is not going to make or break, you know, my health as a whole. So 20% of the time, enjoy the treat. Don't worry about it. If you're actually restricting what you're eating, you're just going to continue to crave that until you feel satisfied and you get what you've been avoiding. And that is what can lead to binge eating. So it's honestly helpful if you incorporate small treats throughout the day, throughout the week, especially if you're working towards more sustainable changes.
Those cupcakes look good.
She is getting hungry. I think her hunger scale is decreasing as we speak.
I'll survive.
To summarize, eat more produce. Everybody can benefit from eating more produce. Eat more whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats, and foods you like.
Eat less sugar, salt, processed foods, and also foods you don't like. I know it's crazy that you went to a nutrition talk and the dietitian said that you need to eat more fruits and vegetables, but I hope that that also included like some of the why as well.
Okay, chapter 5, a day in the life. So we wanted to show you and to kind of give you an example of our days, also some other meals that people provided willingly, I should add, and kind of use our new knowledge to make suggestions for planning well-rounded meals. We're going to start with me. This was not my healthiest day, let me tell you.
It's a real day though.
This was a real day. I said, I'm going to track my meals today, and it did include an IPA. I'm not going to lie. So for breakfast, I got my oatmeal with my peanut butter, which is my go-to, with some raisins and pineapple, because the pineapple at work is incredible.
Fresh cut pineapple every day, guys.
I know. My lunch looked like a salad. It was not really a salad. It was nacho day, and I did not get the chips, which was a mistake because there was a whole buttload of nacho cheese on there.
It was homemade nacho cheese too. Like, okay, good stuff.
It was good. But I skipped the chips because my friend gave me a donut and I wanted to eat the donut as my carbohydrate. So that's how I was thinking that choice through. Dinner was like some grains, ground chicken or turkey, and some vegetables. Classic meal for me, just throw it all in a pot. And then me, of course, enjoying my IPA. This is the app that I use called Nutritionix, where it breaks down, your calories, fats, etc. But why I love it is the pie chart at the bottom. So like I was mentioning earlier on, you want your carbohydrates to be around 45 to 65% of your day. Your fat should be like 20 to 30%, and your protein should be like, I think 15 to 25%. Where I could have improved is eating more carbohydrates. I could have eaten some chips and been a lot better off. Honestly, I think it was just because the carb that I had with my lunch was a bit higher fat because it was a donut.
Yeah, I think that it kind of threw off your balance. You also ate the most vitamin C that I've ever seen in my life.
It's a lot, and I don't even know where it came from.
I think it's the pineapple.
Yeah?
I think the pineapple gave you the vitamin C. Maybe when we were thinking the IPA, I was like, the Citra hops.
But I don't think Citra contributes to vitamin C, but you don't know. But like without even thinking about it, I got 21 grams of fiber.
Shout out.
That's pretty good. Yep. Pretty good. All right.
She's a woman. She can eat 20.
Next up, we have some breakfast options submitted. You can see we've got some 11 grain wide pan bread with some kashi cereal. And then on the other side, we've got some Chobani yogurt with maple butter and some cranberry juice cocktail.
So our thoughts, we would say, perhaps we need a protein on the left and perhaps we need
a carbohydrate
on the right. And we want to do cranberry split with water. Maybe seltzer.
Or cranberry 100% juice.
Yeah. Split with seltzer. Then you can make a little
seltzer.
A spritzer.
Yes. A good old morning spritzer. Yes. So, I mean, obviously we're getting some fiber here. We're getting some protein over here with the Kashi Go, but we do want to have like, I don't know, maybe you can put some yogurt in there or some milk.
I've never seen that Kashi Go before with the 13 grams of protein.
They have a peanut butter one that I've definitely eaten before. Moving on to like some other meals that were provided to us. We've got baked cod with potato and a salad. Look at how well balanced that meal is. Love to just highlight that. That is like the most perfect pie chart I've ever seen, and I love it. What a well-rounded meal. Then we've got the taco salad with lettuce, beef, tortilla chips, salsa, cheese, and red onion. Also sounds incredible. The carbohydrates here are a little bit low. So I would just say that you could add a little bit of rice in there.
Yeah, you could throw some rice in there.
A little bit more well-rounded.
Yeah, good amount of protein though.
I will highlight here with the fried rice that I just put in a standard fried rice to Nutritionix. One of the reasons I love it is you can enter like a standard meal, like a standard fried rice, a standard turkey and cheese sandwich, rather than putting in every ingredient yourself. So this could be completely off because I think that there was more protein in it than was actually highlighted down here. So that one could be a little bit off, but it looks tasty.
The last one is my favorite, though. Also another balanced option.
With some wine.
With some wine for following the Mediterranean diet. And then also like a portion of red meat, but it like, you know, still sticking to that about hand principle. So he's, you know, getting that 30 grams of protein, getting his veggies in, getting some carbohydrate, and the satisfaction from a delicious bottle of Cabernet. I hope he drank the whole thing.
We've got some other beautiful meals here. I would just love to say that this is the definition of eating the rainbow.
Yeah, these are as colorful as you can get.
Eating the rainbow, well balanced. You can see the vegetables that are here, the flavor. Like I definitely would say that this is a meal that you're satisfied after eating.
It's a big bowl too. You know, there's a lot of different vegetables in there. There's some vegetarian protein as well, giving you some some fiber as well as protein, and then like just a lot of flavor. Like you can tell that, you know, after you're eating a meal like this, you're feeling like full and satisfied.
Oh, now we're getting into Olivia's meal, or Olivia's day, I should say.
Okay,
please tell us.
So in the morning, I eat a very similar breakfast to Megan. But I like to make overnight oats. I prefer to have like a cold breakfast. I always burn my tongue on hot oatmeal and I just can't do it and it explodes in the microwave. So can't do it at work. So I do overnight oats, which I mix with some yogurt and then I put some frozen berries on it, which defrost by the morning time. And then I eat it with a couple of loving spoonfuls of our good friend, Mr. Teddy's peanut butter, the most delicious type of peanut butter in the world. So that's pretty much my standard breakfast with some coffee most mornings. Then for lunch that day, we do like a tossed salad kind of a thing, grain bowl situation. So I did eat the piece of salmon off the top of this before I took the picture. And there was also definitely some more vegetables that I had eaten off the top as well. There was like a lot of veggies, some chickpeas, some red kidney beans, some roasted vegetables, and then some rice as well. So like very satisfying, definitely a big bowl of food that made me feel pretty full for a while. And then I had my favorite little snack in the afternoon. I've recently found these at Trader Joe's. They like taste really sweet, but the added sugar content is really not that bad. And they have a good amount of protein. So it's like a dark chocolate, walnut, peanut, fig, and date bar.
That sounds delicious.
It has a lot of words in it, but it like tastes like a candy bar. I'm obsessed. So I had that as my afternoon snack. I'm definitely like a pretty consistent like meal and snack person.
I can confirm.
Yeah, for dinner, I had like a big salad with like a ton of kale and arugula because I had let a bag like almost get kind of bad, so I needed to eat the rest of it. Had some apple, had some quinoa, had some butternut squash. I probably could use more carbs at this meal, but instead of having more carbs, I had some Jenny's ice cream after I finished. My favorite ice cream.
It's so good.
Banana cream pudding with like a coconut cream base. So good. It has like little pieces of wafer in there as well. And then I also had some figs. I am such a sucker for dried fruit. Like I need to have 2 pieces of dried fruit a day to hit my quota.
That's a very specific amount. But as you can see, Olivia got a whole bunch of vitamin A. So she can see really well at night.
Which is actually true because like I definitely get pretty orange hands, which
she does. Which can also confirm.
Yeah.
And she got 37 grams of fiber, probably because you almost ate the entire bag of what was it, arugula or kale?
Yeah, I really ate a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
That was a decent amount of fiber. But all right, those were our sources to tell you that we didn't just make all this stuff up. And lastly, we did put in a plug for our Tuesday talk. So every Tuesday from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time, I sound like I'm actually on TV. We do have our nutrition talk. So we will give sometimes talks like this where we're giving more of, you know, a
lecture.
Yeah, I don't like that term.
Kind of.
A lecture, we'll put it in quotes. A lecture. We'll have other times where we'll do cooking demos. We'll have other times where we're just sharing our favorite recipes, or we're just answering questions, or we're talking about stuff that is not even nutrition related.
We talk about books. We talk about gardening a lot.
Come one, come all, come once, come all the time, whatever you like.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
Come even like you just like have a question and you like want to come and like just pop in for like half hour and bounce.
You can come, you can eat your lunch. And that is the end of our presentation. So we're going to stop sharing and we're going to open it up for questions.
Oh, Heidi's on mute.
Sorry, I usually don't keep myself on mute because I just keep talking, but yeah. Oh, wow, that was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So let's so someone also did ask if this would be available. So another kind of cool thing is when Olivia and Megan, they do a lot of presentations, as they mentioned, at the nutrition group. We also have a Google Drive, so we send those out so you can have access to all of the slides. So we can, I'm assuming it's okay that we will add some of these slides to it or post them somehow for anyone who, am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're just reading through some of the comments.
Sorry. Okay, let's go. Let's get going here. So I'm going to start. I'm kind of going to jump back and forth. So raise your hand, jump in. Let's see. What does on the street mean?
No, I just mean like more generally speaking, because at the beginning we were like wicked scientific.
Yeah.
So if you're just kind of like thinking like, oh, I don't know my weight in kilograms and I forget which number you said to convert, then just think of, okay, I weigh 150 pounds. I need half of that in ounces, as like an easy kind of conversion for yourself.
Yeah.
It does slightly overestimate it, but gotta flush those kidneys, guys.
Easy on the street, like you don't need a calculator.
Yeah, easy on the street, like yeah. Good.
Okay. I'm going to go to Andrew's question, and then I'm going to go to Joe next. Been dealing with pretty bad constipation. What are next steps when the laxatives and suppositories aren't doing much?
I would take a look at your diet. I always say looking at your hydration first. Oftentimes people think they're drinking enough and they're not.
Yeah. Especially if you were like, oh, I'm really trying to like increase my fiber because I know I'm having these, issues. And if you don't increase your water at the same time, it just unfortunately kind of builds things up in your system and there's not enough liquid to kind of get it through. So, fiber is so healthy, but we need that fluid as well to balance it out. And then, also you could also do like a little food journal for yourself, and keep that, bring it to a physiatrist, bring it to a GI doctor if you have one, because like then you can give them information like, I'm doing all of these things, I'm having 37 grams of fiber and 3 liters of water per day, I'm doing all the things I can do and it's not helping. The data is always helpful because then sometimes you can go and they'll be like, can you collect data? And then you have to wait the whole time until you come back.
I think it's helpful too if you are collecting that data and you're writing down what you're eating. Write down like when you have a bowel movement, any symptoms that you're having, like timing can help too. And if you're eating bananas and oatmeal, stop.
Yeah, just stop. Sorry, we love oatmeal, but you gotta stop.
Joe, thank you. Joe.
Hi, great presentation as all suspected. You guys always do a wonderful job. Thank you. Just as an FYI, my breakfast was the one with the kashi and the cranberry juice that was put in there. But my apologies, that was all one breakfast. They weren't separate breakfasts. So hopefully that balances out.
So then it is pretty high in protein.
So then it's balanced a little bit more than what they were by separate. So anyway, just as an FYI. And then I love the stars around your pictures for the animation. I thought that was really kind of neat. All the animations were great, but I didn't know if you want to just touch one thing for those of us on warfarin, because I suspect there might be a few other people here on warfarin. What foods to kind of be careful of, especially like the dark green things. I didn't know if you want to make mention about that or not.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great thing to bring up. Thank you, Joe.
We talk about that a lot in our class because we do have quite a number of people who are on the heavy hitter Mr. Warfarin. And unfortunately, those dark leafy greens, it's kind of, we got to be consistent and say, okay, I'm going to eat dark leafy greens. I'm going to eat them every day. I know that they're good for me. I want to include them. I like them. I'm going to do it. Some people find it helpful to even create a chart for them, or like have a calendar and write down every day I ate 1 cup of spinach, and keeping good track of it for themselves. Or you got to say, you know what, I can eat a lot of other colors, and green's not going to be one of them. I'm going to focus on orange. I'm going to focus on blue. I'm going to do white, red, all the things. But green's just not for me. So kind of switching to those lower vitamin K vegetables, to highlight those.
The biggest word with warfarin or Coumadin is consistency. If you're not able to be consistent, you have to be a lot more careful.
Great. I'm going to go to David Weisselman's question, and then I'm going to go to Brian. Can you specify the type of salt and the importance of electrolytes in liquids? Example, water with lemon.
So some people, I would say that for someone who is having a good amount of output, so whether that is on the upper or on the lower, those are 2 ways that we can lose electrolytes. That was gross, but like, it's just the fact of life. If there's too much coming out, you're going to be losing a lot more electrolytes. And that's when we're thinking a little bit more about some like oral rehydration solutions, especially for individuals who have like an ileostomy. And those are, more of like a scientific balance of sodium, potassium, and as well as carbohydrates to really get hydration into your body and keep your electrolytes stable.
They're called an electrolyte multiplier because sometimes when you're just drinking water, you're causing your electrolytes to go down a bit. So you do want to make sure that you are getting some salts. Olivia will sometimes say that she needs salt because she drinks so much water that she will almost float away. But there was another part of that question and I can't remember what it was. How do you
the lemon.
Oh, lemon? No, the type of salt.
Oh yeah, type of salt. So there is no way for our body to get iodine other than iodinized salt, and you don't want to goiter, which is what happens when you don't get iodine.
Yeah.
So I'm not against like regular table salt. Love some sea salt. I don't really go.
I don't think it's all that different. I don't think your body really knows the difference.
Sometimes it's nice if you're like, oh, I don't put that much salt on, but I want to put a little sea salt on top. Yeah. Gives you like that taste like right on top, without really adding that much actual salt. So if you're like, I want to be heart healthy, but I want to add a little bit of salt, then you get it like right on the tongue versus like just adding it as you're cooking. It can have like a little bit more of an effect. And lemon is for taste and to help you drink more water because sometimes water is boring.
Brian.
Hey, great job. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I just have a question for you about getting your protein level checked. If I wanted to have that done, what test would I ask for?
I wouldn't ask for it.
No.
So in the hospital setting, they will often measure, they take your labs once a week and at least. There are levels that you can check like albumin, free albumin, and those are things that doctors will be like, those are your protein levels that we want to check. And if they're low, they're immediately like, oh, you're malnourished. It's not the case. Albumin and pre-albumin can be affected by a lot of other things, particularly inflammation, which a lot of times your body is under inflammation, especially when you're in the hospital. So, I mean, you could have those checked. They are typically checked when you get your blood taken. So you could honestly go back into your chart right now and be like, oh, I wonder what my albumin was. If you were feeling fine that day, it was probably fine. In terms of like, if you're looking more at your muscle mass and you want to know, do I have enough muscle mass? I would look at those things that Olivia and I talked about that are easy measures. How's your energy level? Are you able to do the things that you were able to do at another point in time when you felt particularly healthy? Are your clothes fitting okay? And then you could also, if you have availability to have a DEXA scan or to do like a
Bioelectrical impedance.
Which again is kind of challenging because you either do have to stand on a scale or have the one that you can hold. So those are two other ways that you can look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can get a DEXA, then do it. It's good. You got to check your bone density either way. Just gives you some more information. It's easy.
We like the data.
Yeah, data.
Thank you. Are blueberries and blackberries soluble or insoluble fiber? I was surprised that strawberries are insoluble.
I think it's the berries on the outside, like the little on the outside.
Yeah.
So when I think of soluble, I really just think about oatmeal and bananas because those are like the biggest ones. We listed a huge number. Mary's laughing. I see her, but like those are the two that you're really going to see the biggest noticeable effect. Everything else is so mixed that I would put it in the same pot. I don't know. Do you feel differently?
Well, I'm going to be gross for a second, but we talk about corn and how corn is insoluble because it comes out the way that it goes in. And blueberries are a little bit the same way, right? You get a little bit of the skin when you go to the bathroom. So I think they're a little bit more insoluble, but they're definitely a mix.
Yeah.
Sorry for the visual.
But corn, though, it can tell you a lot of information. Like if you ate corn today and you don't see it for another 2 to 3 days,
We got a little slow transit.
we got some slow movement in there.
Let's see. Asa asked, hi Asa. This was covered, but he said he got here late. What do you all think about a keto diet for SCI persons at the quad level?
For any level, for any person that is ever walking into my door, I will never suggest to them, I think you need to be on a keto diet. I think that people, a lot of times, we talked about carbs. It's your brain's preferred source of energy. If you're hungry, you're always craving a carb. So it's just easier for us to go overboard on them. And then a lot of the carbohydrates out there, there's so many great healthy options and there's so much crap. There is more crap for carbohydrates than, the whole center section of the grocery store is mostly carbohydrates. If you think about it, there's like a little portion for like cat food, dog food, nuts, and then the rest. Toilet paper, like that's it. So there's so many options and they're so colorful and they're so salty and they're so sweet and they're so delicious. So
she's really hungry, you can tell.
No, I'm just like, saying that there's so much focus on carbohydrates because it's just the biggest portion of our diet. But in thinking balanced about it and thinking about, okay, I can have carbs, I'm just going to have some, focus more on vegetables and get protein as well. That still is incorporating some, but not in an excessive way.
My biggest concern with a keto diet with people who have a spinal cord injury is the calorie density of it all. We talked about how ultimately when you get further out from your injury, your metabolism goes down. So you're going to be eating more of these foods that are more dense. You're going to be eating smaller meals. Are you going to be feeling as satisfied? I don't know. Also, a lot of times when I see people eating more of a keto diet, they're going to be focusing more on the saturated fat, the more solid at room temperature, the red meat, maybe the processed meats. If you can do it in a heart healthy way where you are feeling satisfied and you're not feeling deprived and you're maintaining your weight, I have no problem with it. But I do think that there are some concerns.
Yeah. I've definitely seen people do it and then be really upset at themselves because their lipid levels rise. And I'm like, well, you were eating more fat. You were eating more fat. You were eating more coconut oil. Gosh, coconut oil.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Asa.
Hi. It was a great presentation. What I was able to get to. I was a little late today because I had a hectic morning.
That's okay. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, the reason I was asking that question, I'm not currently doing the keto thing, but there was a doctor on the internet who has a spinal cord injury who was promoting it because he said he uses it for himself. But the takeaway is you don't recommend it.
Yeah, I would say that anything that is recommending a specific product to buy cutting out a whole category of food. They're trying to, or like trying to sell you a powder. It's not it. You know, I don't want you to, I think that anything that's cutting out a huge category of food is not.
So just do the balanced diet, what you all have been describing.
Yep.
It's the most sustainable too. I mean, a keto diet is very hard to sustain. You know, you'll end up following it, losing some weight, and then ultimately you're going to go back to a different way of eating. And will you be able to maintain your weight then?
Yeah,
that's what can also be challenging.
Yeah, but a good question. Appreciated.
Okay, thanks a
We have
lot.
a few minutes. Oh, sorry. We have a few minutes left. We have a few more questions we want to get to. Case, but kind of a two-part questionnaire, I think. Are there any foods or enzyme sources that help better absorb the 20 to 30 grams of protein the body needs? And also, is the mentioned 20 to 30 grams of protein uptake throughout the day or per meal? So,
good question. First part, anything that helps it uptake? No. Sorry. You get what you get and you don't get upset. Then for the 20 to 30, it's going to be at each different meal and snack, you know, so that's just kind of how much your body can handle at one time. So that's why it's important to have a good amount throughout the day. If you're somebody who's tea and toast in the morning and then a nice piece of meat at night, unfortunately, you're still going to get 20 to 30 just from that good portion. You have anything else?
Paul is asking, is coffee a concern for bone density issues?
So, yes, technically.
Not like 1 cup a day.
Yeah,
like a lot of coffee.
Coffee should not be your primary beverage for anyone, no matter, you know, well, also for anyone with a spinal cord injury, but for anyone out there, coffee should not be your primary beverage. It is going to dehydrate you a little bit. It's mostly still going to contribute to your hydration. So, but you know, 1 to 2 cups in the morning, enjoy them, and call it a day. It can, at an excess level, contribute to bone density. So sometimes the bone doctors will like focus on that, but you have to think about it, like how much ounces you're actually taking in, and get your bone density checked.
Do we have any other questions? You can go ahead and shout something out if you're don't want to utilize the chat.
Actually, Heidi, I keep sending it to the wrong person. Ed has a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ed.
Any tips on regularity as it applies to bowel programs?
Yeah. When you turn off this talk, you can log
have
on.
Better success with bowel programs?
When you turn off this talk, you should turn on our talk from
last year,
2022 or 2021. I forget.
It's on the YouTube channel.
On the YouTube channel, we did an hour talk with ourselves and then a physiatrist, as well as a panel of individuals. We just talked about bowels the whole time. So that's like probably tip number 1.
We don't have as much time right now to really dive into it, but it is.
And also come to Tuesday.
Yes. We talk.
They have 6th floor lunch group every Tuesday at noon.
Oh.
So he's with Mary Ann and Lauren at that time.
Well, I mean, you don't have to do it right now. In the future too. But
I'll have to skip a lunch.
It's a great starting point to watch that presentation. I think everybody's bowels are so individualized, and I always refer to the initial period after your spinal cord as when your digestive system is like relearning how to work again. So it's figuring out, how do I get back to a regular system? So again, focusing on your hydration. If you're in the hospital, it gets so dry, you probably need to drink more than you think you need to drink more.
Yellow, or your pee needs to be Sauv Blanc.
Champagne or Sauv Blanc.
If it's not that light, then you need to start
water.
Yes. And then also just thinking, are there some areas where I can get some more fruits and vegetables in? I'm also a big fan of prunes daily. I think, did Donna put that in the chat? I think
Yeah,
she did. She
somebody
said
did.
6 prunes a day, which I think you gotta build
That was
up.
I think David Weisselman.
Okay.
You got to build up to
Okay.
6.
Don't go right to 6. That could lead to the other direction, but definitely starting with like 1 or 2, but being regular with it. If you're aiming for bowel regularity, you want to be regular with your routine. So we'll have some people who are like, I eat a little bit of a snack before my bowel program. I don't want to eat my whole meal before my bowel program, but you got to get your digestive system started. And we're a big fan of peristalsis. We were talking about that this past week, right? And that's what gets your system going, and that's what starts when you eat something.
Yeah, gets everything moving. Yeah.
That
thank you.
presentation was last year?
Yes, it was.
It is, right, Heidi?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
so-
just put it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and Josh, thank you also for putting that in the chat. Sorry,
thanks,
folks, we have several of us are signed in under the account, so it gets confusing about who's posting what, but yes, Jess just put it in there, Josh did. If anybody would like me to email it to them, I'm happy to do that if you're not able to grab it from the chat.
We also, did you include the link, Heidi, for the Google Docs if they want that?
Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'll do that right now.
We also have a Google Drive
Yep.
account where we include all of the presentations that we've made in the past. So we have one on digestion, we have one on like probiotics, we have them on a lot of different diets, keto, heart health. We have some recipes in there if anyone's interested.
Yeah, we've been, we have amassed a good amount of content over the past couple of years.
You need that?
I don't want it to dissolve and it's gonna taste bad.
Joe, did you raise your hand again?
I did, but it was answered with the YouTube video because I didn't know if it was on the Boston website or if I just had to go out to YouTube.
Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
been answered. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just posted, and again, if anybody would like me to email it to them, just let me know. You can shout out or.
Oh, golly.
Okay, thanks. That was a great presentation. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks,
terrific.
guys. We appreciate everyone coming.
Yeah,
Yes, well
thank
done, Olivia and Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for coming. This has been recorded
Yep.
and will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch it, or we'll also figure out, we'll post the slides. Actually, the slides will probably end up in the nutrition drive, I'm guessing, but we'll make sure we get that.
Can do that.
Does
We'll
that
put it
seem
in
like
the
a good
drive.
idea?
Yep.
Okay.
And we also, if anybody has like more questions or we didn't answer their question in depth enough, we are planning this Tuesday to have like a little debrief at our nutrition talk. So it'll be reserved for questions.
And then just also in the future, remember those resources, friends, individual dietitians, like you're like, I really need more help.
It doesn't need to be us.
It doesn't need to be us. There's plenty of great dietitians out there that can help you and that can be covered by your insurance.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think those for the pro.
Great. Okay. David, I got your email, your message. I will email that to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else need me to email anything? Okay. Well, you know where to find me if you need anything. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Great to see you all. Have a wonderful day. We'll see some of you on Tuesdays. We'll see some of you at the other groups. As always, for any support that you're looking for, please never hesitate to reach out to myself, to Jessica, to Obi, anybody on our team. And yeah, great to have so many mentors here as well joining us. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Megan, Olivia, Heidi, everyone.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
Yes.
Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy
Thank
some
you.
time.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you.
job.